Hey guys, hope all of you are doing fine. This is the part 14 of the Being Reborn in Marvel with Gamer's Ability. Marvel Gamer Part 14. Unknown POV. For a few silent moments, Alex stared down the Nordic goddess of death, his eyes filled with a spark of both anger and excitement. A dangerous combination. This is hardly fair, darling. Hela was the first to speak, the wounds Alex had inflicted a few moments ago all but gone. 5 against 1 feels a bit like cheating. Alex scoffed, turning to look at his companions for a very brief moment, exchanging some looks with them before turning to look at her once again. Don't worry, this is a one-on-one, they have no complaints. Hela smiled, seemingly pleased with his response as she took a step forward, putting one hand on her hip in a suggestive manner before saying, "Then, let's make this our first date." "Go to hell," Alex replied in a cold manner, cracking his knuckles before a powerful crimson aura erupted around him. Hela, almost as if on instinct, jumped back without realizing it, deep down wondering in shock, why had she jumped? Alex smiled, without saying a word before dashing forward to Hela, who by now had forced herself to recover her stoic demeanor, as she smiled at his approach. Blurring out of sight, Alex moved in front of Hela, throwing a powerful horizontal kick to her face. Grinning in excitement, Hela moved one of her blades to block the attack, but much to her shock, the kick broke her blade and arm out of the way, before his attack landed on her face. Half of her face deformed into a twisted image thanks to Alex's attack. Hela staggered back slightly, her legs trembling as she shakily reached to her face in disbelief, coughing blood, her wounds barely just beginning to heal. However, Alex was not about to give her a free chance to recover from his attack that easily. So, with a wild grin as Hela started to regenerate, Alex extended his right hand at her, inches away from her face, before barely whispering, "Requiem." At this, a massive wave of black energy burst forth from his right hand, engulfing her before exploding. The explosion created a massive curtain of smoke that took a few seconds to clear out. Once the smoke had cleared, Alex stood, his hand still extended, as in front of him, a skeletal figure laid on the ground, twitching right where Hela once stood. "I think your regeneration is better than mine," Alex commented with an annoyed sigh as he clicked his tongue, his eyes staring into the skeletal figure with intent as a black goo-like substance started to form around it. That figure was Hela, or what little remained of her. "I guess I have to up my game then." With a grin, Alex equipped his infinity stones alongside his godly axes, moving both arms back as he charged his next attack. As he did this, Hela started to stand up, her trembling body still incomplete, barely reaching the muscular part of her regeneration. "Ascending / Alex muttered, swinging both of his axes at Hela as a gigantic energy wave fired from his weapons, colliding head-on with the still regenerating goddess, who had no choice but to take the entire attack once again. The attack was one that transcended time, space, and power itself, showing its mighty reach by hurling the spectators around, Thor, Sif, and Bucky several miles away. Once the smoke cleared, nothing but dust stood in front of Alex, who in annoyance clicked his tongue. "How the fuck are you still alive?" Alex complained, staring at the empty spot in front of him, as out of nowhere, seemingly appearing out of thin air, black goo started to appear, the same he had seen when Hela was regenerating. Hela was still alive. Even after having her entire body blown to ashes, she was still alive. "Very well then," Alex chuckled, his eyes full of mild amusement accompanied by unyielding rage as he took a step forward, his hand glowing green, thanks to being powered by the time stone. "Perhaps I'm just trying too hard," he added, digging his hand into the black goo substance. Then, with a smirk, he plunged his hand into the ground, dragging the black goo substance with it, and started to age everything around him, thousands of years each passing second. This, in turn, made Hela's regeneration speed up, healing all of her wounds in the blink of an eye. However, by the time she regenerated, she found herself trapped, with Alex's hand firmly keeping her in place, impaling her to the ground. "You plan to age me to death?" Hela laughed, amused by Alex's approach. "I do," Alex replied. "Asgardians only get more powerful with the passing of time." Hela grinned, swinging both of her arms at Alex, in an attempt to knock him off her. However, before her attack connected, Alex's body was engulfed in a purple aura, neutralizing her attack before it could even reach him by channeling the power of the Power Stone as a shield, effectively neutralizing any and all attempts at him. "Sit back and relax," Alex smiled, plunging his other arm into her heart as he added, "Taste the passing of time, Hela." Hela smiled, before breaking into a fit of laughter. "You truly are everything I've wished for in a partner, in a man." She sighed, "I guess this is it for me." Alex said nothing as he continued to age Hela, thousands of years each passing second. For the first few minutes, no noticeable change was seen. But as time passed, Hela's hair started to turn white, with fine lines and wrinkles appearing all over her body, her once flawless skin turning dull and dry, her pores beginning to be more noticeable. "It was an honor, dying by your hand," Hela chuckled, her voice already sounding like that of an old lady, as she reached to touch Alex's face with a smile. "You chose this path," Alex replied, allowing her to caress his face. "I did," Hera admitted with a weak smile, "and I would do it all over again, would the chance present. This world, this universe, is and should be mine." She sighed, her skin wrinkling even more. "Maybe everything would have been different had we known each other during my time. Don't you think?" "Maybe," Alex conceded. "I'll see you in hell when your time comes, darling." Hela smiled, her glassy-looking eyes staring at Alex with a feeling akin to fondness before her body started to become dust, leaving nothing behind as a gust of wind erased any signs of her. Hela was no more, leaving nothing but memories of her. For even her, was a subject of time. The battle had ended, leaving nothing but a bad taste in my mouth as I stood from the ground. Hela had died. And where she once stood, the only thing that remained was the essence that made her so powerful. The Odin Force. Or half of it anyways. We were having troubles with her, all of us together, but you defeated her alone. Thor barked with a grin, approaching me. I chuckled, "You don't have 3 Infinity Stones to power you up. Besides, unlike you, I adapted to my new strength quite easily. If there was one thing I liked about the game, it was how easy made my life in terms of adaptation. Still, you have proven how much of a warrior you are." Thor smiled, pulling me into a hug. I smiled, hugging him back as I turned to look at the Odin Force, a small orb glowing with dense power. "You should take that," I said, pointing to the orb. "The last thing we needed was a power-hungry Asgardian, cough cough, Loki, appearing out of nowhere to consume it." "What is that?" Thor asked, looking over my shoulder, without breaking the hug. I sighed, how could he not know what it was? He had half of it inside of him. "That's the other half of the Odin Force," the Ancient One replied before I could facepalm myself. "Oh," Thor mouthed, breaking the hug up as he approached the orb with a tentative look on his face, almost as if afraid to touch it. "So, what do I do?" he asked, looking at the orb. "I don't know, touch it," I offered. "That should work," the Ancient One nodded. "Okay," Thor shrugged, slowly moving his hand to the orb, who in turn started to glow more and more as if beckoning Thor to take it. "I feel like it's calling me," he muttered in a daze. Maybe it is, I nodded. Here we go, Thor sighed, finally, but nervously touching the orb. Immediately after, the orb expanded around Thor, covering a small area around him while effectively engulfing his entire body before any of us could react, creating a small dome of light where Thor once stood, before exploding in a blinding show of light. "Fuck," I heard Bucky muttered as I covered my eyes. When the light died down, and my eyes once again adjusted to the light around, I saw Thor looking at his hands in mild shock. For a moment, I saw no difference in him, but as I watched Thor stand there daydreaming, I felt something. His magic. It had increased exponentially. He was several times stronger than he was a few moments ago. Thor Odinson, the All-Father LV. I blinked, before starting to chuckle. He had really increased his overall power by a lot with the Odin Force. As he is right now, I doubt I can defeat him. I feel, Thor muttered, clenching his hands. Incredible. I chuckled. Of course you do, you are now mighty, I grinned as he turned around with a smile of his own. We should spar later today. Thor grinned. I nodded, sure, but don't expect much, as you are right now. I doubt I can challenge you much. Thor beamed at me. Then I will help you reach this level, so that we can continue pushing each other. I smiled, before turning to face the others. So, what now? We bring the Asgardians back to Asgard, I would say, the Ancient One said, summoning a cup of tea. I raised an eyebrow at that. Tea? Right now? Well, what can I say? It has been a really tiring day. Mr. Walker, the Ancient One winked. Oh, that reminds me, at this, the Ancient One snapped her fingers, creating a portal a few feet away from us, from where Loki fell, landing face first in the ground. You bitch. I've been falling for an hour and a half. Loki roared, summoning his daggers, only for Thor to slap him unconscious. I chuckled. Yeah, I don't have the patience to deal with him today, Thor commented, grabbing the unconscious Loki by his belt like a sack of potatoes. The fact you deal with him on a daily basis is your most mighty feat, I snorted. Indeed, the Ancient One. Yep, Bucky nodded. Totally true, Sif sighed. Well, I mean, he's adopted, so yeah, Thor sheepishly replied. He is? Sif asked, mild shock lacing his tone. Frost giants, Thor nodded, scratching his head with a weak chuckle. Wow, your father sucks, Bucky snorted. Hey. I mean, it's true, but still, only Loki or Alex can say that, Thor scowled. I get why Loki, but why Alex? Bucky inquired. Duh. Because we are brothers. Thor replied, giving me the thumbs up. I forget it, Bucky sighed. So that makes Alex what? A prince? Sif teasingly asked before slapping my ass playfully. Oh. Great idea, Sif. Thor beamed at her, grinning. I blinked. Oh no. Oh yes. Dear brother. Thor said, seemingly reading my mind. My first decree as ruler of Asgard is making you a prince. Please don't, I groaned. Too late, I already have the paperwork done, Thor grinned. Thor, you haven't moved from here, and you just got the idea. You have nothing done, I shot back. Can't hear you over all this paperwork done. Thor laughed, running towards the castle. He will do it regardless of what I say, right? I asked to no one in particular. Yes, everyone in my group replied, as Thor ran like a child towards his castle, a powerful, godly child. So, I'm dating a prince now? Sif asked, grabbing my hand. I suppose you are, I chuckled. Maybe I will get powers from this, like, I don't know, the ability to summon animals with my voice, or the ability to sing. That's princesses, Mr. Walker, the Ancient One stated. So, what do I get? I asked, turning around. Responsibilities, the Ancient One grinned. Thor is not the brightest tool on the shed, but he ain't stupid. He knows he can't rule Asgard alone, therefore, he's giving you a title. I blinked. That little overpowered bastard. The hell he won't. I shot back, teleporting to the castle. They truly act like brothers, Sif chuckled. Stupid ones, Bucky snorted. Thor had made me a prince. Even though I didn't want the title, he had gone and made a speech about how I had saved Asgard when no one else could. The speech in question was moving, some even cried. It got to the point the people of Asgard were shouting that I should be a prince for my heroic sacrifice. Just what Thor wanted. That little shit knew how to play the game. Anyway. In the end, I reluctantly accepted. Because why not? Also, Thor's ideas had some merits. In short, he wanted to make a council of people he trusted. Sif, the Ancient One, Bucky, and, of course, me. This council would basically deal with problems as they came as a unity of sorts, dealing with threats like Thanos, or in the most recent case Hela as one. It would also deal with minor problems around the 9 realms, basically doing what Odin promised to do, but never did, which was to protect the 9 realms. I mean, he did. But, not as he had promised. Anyhow. The council would not work under Thor, but with him, as every member of the council would share the same rank as Thor or anyone else for that matter. Needless to say, we all accepted. I mean, why wouldn't we? We had all been operating under those guidelines already. With this, we just made it official in a sense, with the Council of Ravens. I have no idea why Thor had decided to propose that name, but I accepted. It was, after all, as good as any name. After all the official business, I had a fight with Thor. And lost, very fast. Not that I expected to last much, considering he now had the full Odin force within him, but it bruised my ego to lose that fast, but good for him. I'm not used to this power, Thor admitted, frowning as he looked into his hands with concern. I sighed, brushing my hair with my hand. Thor, just give it time, your body will eventually acclimate to the change. Thor chuckled, averting his eyes to the side. I suppose, but what good is having power if you don't know how to use it? He had a good point. Since when Thor is so mature? How did your father learn to control that power then? I asked. Odin seemed like in his time he had been like Thor, but worse. Well, not sure, Thor mused, turning to look at me with a thoughtful look on his face. Maybe we should ask him. I offered. I don't want to talk to him right now, Thor muttered, his eyes turning dark. I nodded. He had every reason to be mad at his father right now. Then, maybe I can for you. I offered. You would do that for me? Thor asked, his eyes beaming once again with his usual innocence. Sure, I nodded. I owe you one, brother, Thor smiled, pulling me into a hug. You owe me many, I grinned, hugging him back. Odin Borson POV. Hela had died. At the hands of the one destined to be her beloved. And now Thor had the full power of that made one a true king of Asgard. Odin, that voice, so the brat has finally come. Alex, I greeted, my tone a bit cold. I couldn't help it, he had killed my daughter, and while I knew it had been a necessary thing to do, I still felt conflicted about it. Alex raised an eyebrow. I need some information. I looked at him, my eyes staring into his. Right now it's not the time. Odin, you owe Thor this, Alex said, his tone growing cold. I don't care for your family drama, I truly don't, but I care for Thor, so if you care even a little for him, you will answer some questions. Is that all right? Odin. You dare? I roared, rising to my feet. I dare, Alex replied, unfazed by my anger. I still stronger than you, brat, I growled, moving closer to him. He had no right to judge, I did what I did for a reason, and no mortal would ever have the right to judge me. He was a brat, a mere child, he was still too young to understand the sacrifices I had to make. You wanna fight? Then stop bitching, and throw the first punch, otherwise, answer my questions, Alex growled back, taking a few steps towards me, his eyes burning with an unyielding desire for combat, as his face was inches away from mine. You are forgetting your place, I roared, the ground beneath me trembling as my magic flared. You think me weak without the essence of Asgard. I haven't used that power since I sealed my daughter. I'm still as strong as you remember. As I said, you want to fight? Then stop bitching about your shit and throw the first punch, otherwise, answer my questions, Alex repeated, cracking his neck. Either option works for me, fighting you will be a breeze compared to Thor right now. He grinned. I growled, throwing the first punch to his face, that sent him flying across the room. The brat wanted a fight. Good. I would give him one, besides, I needed a way to vent my frustrations. Now we are talking, old man, Alex chuckled, walking towards me, his mouth bleeding ever so lightly as his eyes stared into mine, brimming with violent intent. Nothing like a good fight to work your frustrations out. I growled, walking towards him. You will regret angering me, brat. Alex scoffed, moving his shoulders a bit as he got into position. Very unlikely, but go ahead, prove me wrong. Gladly, I roared, rushing towards. Frigga POV. Odin and Alex were fighting. I could feel Odin's rage coating the entire area. I had to stop them. Don't. A portal appeared in front of me, with the Ancient One being the one to walk through it. Don't. He'll kill Alex. What was this woman playing at? If you seriously think Alex is that easy to kill, then you need to watch closely. Besides, Alex knows what he's doing, the Ancient One replied, her eyes aiming towards the battle. Killing himself. What else would he achieve fighting Odin of all people? No, the Ancient One shook her head, smiling at me in amusement. Odin is a warrior, Alex knows this. He also knows warriors like Odin have a problem sharing their feelings the conventional way, so he's offering Odin a way to vent all of his frustrations. Believe me, by the end of this battle, Odin will be laughing. If Alex survives, I muttered. The Ancient One POV. Consumed by his own emotions, Odin instantly charged at Alex, who was already waiting for him in a defensive stance, which allowed him to not only dodge Odin's first attack but deliver an attack of his own, blasting Odin with a point-blank requiem that sent the former Allfather to his knees briefly, destroying half of his clothes. Growling, Odin pushed himself up rather quickly and rushed at Alex once again, delivering two well-connected punches to his chest, before attempting to blast Alex with a beam of cosmic power. However, Alex ducked under his attack, scarcely dodging the powerful beam that grazed his hair, before grabbing Odin's hand, pulling the former Allfather close to him, delivering a mana-charged palm strike to Odin's stomach with enough power to take the air out of Odin. But as expected of Odin, he recovered quickly, grabbing Alex by the shirt before snarling, "Don't hold back me. I have seen you fight. Don't mock me." Smiling, Alex grabbed Odin's hand before slamming him to the ground in a seemingly flawless motion that caught Odin off guard. Sure, Alex smiled, jumping a few steps back, pointing at Odin before doing a flick with his hand, as if to say, "Come on. That was all Odin needed to jump to his feet. Growling, but at the same time somehow smiling, Odin rushed at Alex, before teleporting in front of him, swiftly punching the perplexed human in the solar plexus, knocking the wind out of him, and stunning him for a brief moment. "That's for earlier," Odin growled before delivering another punch in the same spot with twice the strength, doubling Alex over. Grinning, Odin followed that up with a quick rising uppercut, lifting Alex's body high into the air, before grabbing his leg and slamming him to the ground. "Is that all?" the former king barked, letting his guard drop for just the briefest of moments. A grave mistake. Taking advantage of this, Alex moved in front of the former king in a blur of movement, delivering 3 consecutive blows in rapid succession, one to his throat, one to his chin, and one to his eye, effectively stunning Odin for a brief moment. Which was more than enough time for Alex to grab Odin's wrist, throwing the former king high into the air, before slamming him headfirst into the ground. Then letting off his wrist, Alex extended his right hand towards Odin, muttering Requiem. The explosion this time was big, enough to destroy Odin's house completely, but not enough to put the former king down. "You brat," Odin smirked, completely unharmed for the most part. Alex grinned back, cracking his knuckles. "Is that all? Or you need more therapy?" Odin scoffed. "You will regret this one way or another." Alex cracked a smile at him. "Nah, for one I'm enjoying this. Way better than seeing you whine." Odin growled. "You will learn to respect your elders." "Bring it on," Alex challenged. It was funny really, seeing the old oaf trying to appear angry and insulted when in reality, he could barely hold the grin on his face. After all, he was a warrior first, and then a king. This was in a way, therapeutic for him. He was venting his anger on Alex. He had no reason, or intent to kill him. He just wanted for a moment to forget. And Alex was offering him that. "This is getting out of hand," Frigga commented. "Don't worry, let the kids play," I chuckled, summoning 2 cups of tea, one for me, and one for Frigga. She really needed one. "Those kids, as you say, have the power to destroy the planet," Frigga shot back. "They won't," I assured. I was at least a 68% sure they wouldn't. 62, yes, that's better. "Very well then," Frigga sighed, grabbing the cup of tea I was offering her in an anxious manner. Alex Walker POV, 8 hours later. After 8 hours of non-stop fighting, I had been defeated. And now, I laid on the ground chuckling. As Odin offered me a hand. He had won. I mean, I was far from done. And I had not used my Infinity Stones. But, I had accomplished my goal. I had helped the old depressed bastard to vent some of his problems in the best way Asgardians knew, with violence. "You did well," Odin smiled, as I took his hand. "Same," I smiled. "You will surpass me soon enough. So I guess I'm happy I got to beat you before that happened," Odin chuckled. "So, are you feeling better?" I asked, pulling a few beers from my inventory. Odin nodded, grabbing one. "As good as I can feel right now." "Can you help me now?" I asked, taking a sip of my beer. Odin chuckled. "Sure, why not?" "Perfect," I smiled at him. "Let me guess. It's about the essence of Asgard, right?" Odin sighed, grabbing the beer with his 2 hands. "Yes," I nodded. "Thor is having troubles adjusting to the power, so I wanted to know how you mastered it, before telling him." Odin smiled, a sad smile, looking at the ground. "I suppose the reason you are asking instead of him, is because Thor doesn't want to speak to me. Give him time. He not only discovered he had a sister, you never told him about, but that his brother is not his brother in blood, and to top that off, he had to fight his sister to the death, Almost dying a few times I sighed, scratching the back of my head. I mean, I'm no expert, but that's a recipe for trauma right there. I suppose it is, Odin conceded, before clapping his hands and turning to look at me. If he wants to learn to control the essence, he needs to do what I did. He needs to see the runes of Yggdrasil and drink from the well of Mimi. I blinked. Shit. That's how I learned how to control that power, Odin sighed. So he will have to sacrifice an eye? I asked. Odin nodded. The bigger the sacrifice, the better. Very well then, I sighed, standing up. I will send some people to fix this. I would say house, but, I chuckled. Don't worry, I will use my magic to fix it, Odin chuckled, before turning to look at me, with a worried expression. Promise me something, Alex. What? I asked, curious as to what he was gonna ask. Don't let my boy alone, Odin muttered. Help him, in every step of the way. I nodded. You didn't need to ask. Thor is, after all, my brother, and with that, I teleported back to Asgard. The Well of Mimi, the root of all wisdom, according to the Asgardian Private Royal Library, it is said to be located at the root of Yggdrasil, wherever that is. Being the home to Mimi, once one of the wisest of the Asgardians of Bor's time, according to the books he was transformed by Odin after ascending to the throne into a disembodied head for reasons not disclosed in the books, putting him on well, where he gained omniscience due to the waters that flow from Yggdrasil. I frowned. Why had Odin done that? Never mind that, I sighed, closing the book. I had to find where the roots were. Something Odin didn't want to disclose because apparently, this was a mission Thor, and in this case, me, had to complete on our own. Why? Well, he didn't say, but fortunately, I had found in one of the books I had read that you couldn't use the same path to the roots more than once. Meaning, the way Odin used to reach the roots was no longer usable. Daddy, Emily said as she walked into the library with a cup of hot steamy chocolate. Is that for me? I smiled. It is, Emily beamed at me, giving me the cup. I grabbed the cup and gave her a kiss on the forehead before putting the cup on the table beside me. It had been 2 weeks since we moved to Asgard, not a permanent agreement, but one I wanted to keep for the time being, at least while I helped Thor rule his kingdom, and such. Once the god of thunder didn't need of my assistance anymore, I would see where I wanted to live. Besides, living in Asgard barely affected me or the girls, I mean, portals, or if Emily or I were busy, Heimdall. So, for the time being, it was fine. Also, Loki was now terrified of me, and more than me, Thor. Nat is practicing with Sif, Emily said, taking a seat. Sif's teaching her to use the sword. What about you? Don't you want to learn? I asked, looking at her. No, I like my magic. Emily shook her head, looking at her feet, but I did want to ask for permission from you to learn Asgardian magic. With that said, she activated her puppy eyes. I frowned, before starting to chuckle. First of all, you don't have to use that look on me, young lady. Second, sure, go ahead. I mean, you are a princess of Asgard, and it is your right to learn, so, knock yourself out. Emily blinked, before smiling wider than it should be possible. I'm a princess. I nodded slowly. I was crowned by Thor as a prince of Asgard, therefore you, and Nat, are princesses. I feel like I made a mistake. I'm a princess. Emily shouted in total glee, rupturing my ears. Meow. Goose purred, running into the library with a look of concern. Run, Goose, she's a real princess now, I mouthed, and the alien cat seemed to understand because immediately after, she basically teleported out of the way, escaping Emily. I can't believe it. Emily giggled, bouncing around. Baby girl, my ears, I chuckled, grabbing some headphones from my inventory. But Daddy, I'm a princess. Emily beamed, tackling into a hug. My Goose came back. Goose. Emily smiled, turning around to find Goose wearing her tiara. Good idea. We need tiaras. Goose had only gone to get her tiara. Okay, I chuckled, grabbing Emily by the waist like a sack of energetic potatoes. I'll buy you two some dresses and tiaras later, but, right now, Daddy needs some alone time to study. Emily pouted, nodding within my grasp. Fine. My Goose nodded. Good, now, go and tell Nat she's a princess, I grinned. Emily at this chuckled. I bet she won't like it. Maybe she will, I shrugged, winking at her, before opening a portal to her room, tossing both her and Goose into the portal. Daddy. I'm a princess, not a sack of dirty clothes. Don't throw me like that. Emily giggled, while Goose gave me a dirty look of indignation. I chuckled, winking at them before closing the portal. Time to hit more books, I sighed, turning around to see the mountains of books I had yet to read. This was going to be a long, long day. Loki Odinson POV. Alex was now a prince of Asgard. Thor had insulted in the biggest way possible, putting that mortal on the same level as me. To make matters worse, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even see their shadows anymore. They felt, and seemed unreachable. I was no fool. I could feel their power. Even from afar, it was like a violent sea waiting to swallow me at any given moment. That was a level of power I had only felt from father. To think a mortal would reach such levels, it was infuriating. Damn it all! I roared, punching the wall of my room, cracking part of it under my fist. How did he do it? Thor, I understand, he absorbed the power of kings, but how did a mortal reach that level without that? Of course. How could I be so blind? The Infinity Stones. They were the fuel behind his growth, the only reason why a mortal was able to surpass a god like me. With them, he had closed the gap. If I were to have them, not even Thor would pose a threat to me. I had to have them. The question now was, how to retrieve them from his hands. As he is now, I pose no threat to him. And considering how Thor loves him, and his daughters, attacking daughters is off the table. One wrong move, and Thor will erase me. Therefore, getting the stones he has on his hands is impossible. But there were still other stones to gather, 3 in fact. I grinned. I guess it's time to make some calls. I laughed. Soon I would recover what those two had stolen from me. Soon, they would all fear and respect Loki. For days, I continued to research about everything there was to know about Yggdrasil and such, discovering a few interesting facts and things about the subject. For one, finding that the 9 realms were originally 10, and became 9 during Odin's reign. Asgard, the main world, the home of the Aesir, and the location of Valhalla, aka the Hall of the Slain. Alfheim, which was loosely translated to Land of the Elves or Elfland, and as the name suggests is home of the Josulfar, aka the Light Elves. Not much can be found about them though, but in most books, they are described as being more beautiful than the sun. Nidavellir, the realm of the dwarfs, a race of master smiths and craftsmen, good guys, should visit them soon. Midgard, aka Earth. Jotunheim, the homeland of the Jotnar, aka the Frost Giants. A realm described as downright unlivable, having dark forests and mountain peaks covered in an unholy winter that never eases its frosty grip no matter the situation. Vanaheim, the home realm of Frigga, and one known for their magic. Niflheim, translated as abode of mist or mist world, a realm that is somehow more cold than the one the frost giants reside in, described as the world of primordial ice, whatever that is. Muspelheim, the total opposite of Niflheim, being the realm of the primordial fire, not much is detailed in the books about said world. And last, but not least, Hell, also referred to as Helheim or the realm of Hell, the place Hela sent me for a couple of hours while she tried to take over the world and such. Now, these were the realms everyone knew about. But there was one that used to be on the roster. That realm was called Heaven. According to the only book I found about the subject, because more than not, all books had this realm redacted out of them. Heaven was, at one point, one of the 9 realms, which at the time I suppose were called the 10 realms. Its inhabitants were known as angels for their holy looks and angelic wings. Anyhow, sometime during Odin's reign, something happened, and the angels decided to wage a war against Asgard. After that, everything was redacted, showing nothing else of importance in the book. Fucking Odin hiding shit. Thankfully, now that I knew what to look for, my quest was considerably easier, because I only had to use my power to know more. I had after all unlocked the history of the universe a long time ago. So, I did just that. And what I found was not pretty. The war had apparently started for petty reasons, at least according to me, eventually leading to the Queen of Angels successfully kidnapping and seemingly killing Odin's newborn infant at the time, Aldrich. In rage, Odin used his powers to cut off Heaven from the other 9 realms and Yggdrasil altogether. However, the king's hatred didn't end there. Blinded by his sorrow, Odin spat a curse upon the angels, a curse wrought of the Odin force to bind them forever from returning home, anchoring them deeper in the void, as punishment for killing his daughter. The funny thing is, according to my records, Aldrich was still alive. Meaning, that unbeknownst to Odin, he had sealed his own newborn daughter, alongside the angels in the void. God damn it, Thor's family feels like a telenovela. So Thor has another sister, I sighed, scratching the back of my head. Another daughter he imprisoned, great. I hope at the very least this one doesn't have a weird prophetic infatuation on me. Now, how the fuck do I break this news to Thor? No. How the fuck do I break this to Frigga? No. How the fuck do I break this to Odin? They will kill each other, I sighed. I mean, Odin would probably kill himself after finding out his second daughter not only didn't die, but he sealed her like he did with Hela. Frigga will probably tear him a new one, finding out her firstborn never died as she thought, and had been inside the void for all these years. Thor will simply lose his shit. I mean, how many siblings can Odin fucking hide? I need a beer. Brother. Fuck. Hey Thor, I waved at him. Is there something wrong? Thor asked, his usual smile fading ever so lightly. I nodded, but before he could ask, I raised my hand, shushing him up. Thor, I need a drink, and by one, I mean a barrel of beer. After that, we'll talk. Fine by me, Thor chuckled, giving me a one-armed hug. Besides, how bad can it be? It's not like I have another sibling ready to kill me father didn't tell me about. No best moment to hear a Hela-related joke. Beer, now, I replied. Thor narrowed his eyes for a bit, before he shrugged. Fine, let's go. And with that, we teleported to the royal bar, where I would get drunk enough to deal with the telenovela Odin had created. Natasha Walker POV. When Emily said I was a princess, I wanted to say no. But the benefits were alluring. Nat, princesses don't cheat while playing cards with their subjects, Emily pouted. My sweet but stupid little sister, I sighed, shaking my head from side to side. Hey! Emily shot back, crossing her arms. I'm just teaching them, I smiled, hugging her with one arm, as the other pointed high to the sky in contemplation. I'm teaching my subjects to be more alert, and if in the process I make a few tons of gold, so be it. It's a small price to pay for the valuable lesson I'm giving them. If I tell Dad, what do you think will happen? Emily inquired, a smug smile on her face. I sighed. How much do you want, you little shit? I chuckled. 50%, Emily replied without missing a beat. God, I was proud of her. 45, and I wear a tiara like you wanted me to, I offered, extending my hand. Deal, Emily nodded, shaking my hand. Thor reacted as I expected him to when I told him he had another sister. Needless to say, this revelation did no good to his already strained relationship with his father. But I didn't worry much. According to my rankings, Aldrich Odin's was weaker than Hela, by around 120 levels, so, even if she was like Hela, and wanted to kill Thor and bang me for some reason, dealing with her would be infinitely easier. Of course, I would not underestimate her. Better to be safe than sorry. Last time I got sealed because I was frighteningly unprepared for such tactics, and who knew what powers Aldrich had, so I would simply play it safe, and assume the worst. Anyway, putting the whole royal family novella aside, I was right now on my way to the royal library, a cup of coffee at hand, ready to dwell deeper into the mystery of the Well of Mimi, and the roots of Yggdrasil. Not gonna lie, I was somewhat excited about this particular research homework I was doing. I mean, it was not always my system, and its library didn't have all the answers for me. I chuckled, continuing my way to the library, waving at the guards around as I passed them. Prince Alex, one guard saluted, stuttering his words. He was probably a fan. According to Sif, I had gained a fan club in Asgard. Funny enough, it didn't start after the events of Hela, but after my first battle with Thor. The club was named the Alex Walker Warriors Club. Hi there, I waved at him, which prompted a giggle from the guard. Would you give me your autograph, sir? Another guard approached, giving me a blank piece of paper, sheepishly looking around, fidgeting like a nervous kid. Having funs is weird. Sure, I smiled, giving summoning a pen. Autograph done, and a few more giggles, I walked into the library questioning my choice of moving to Asgard. Having a fan club, mainly composed of people way older than me, was somewhat perturbing. Then again, I was awesome. So, I guess I do deserve some appreciation. Alright, time to continue my research, I declared, mostly to myself, while looking around. Thousands of books, and so little time. 16 hours later, and I still had nothing of value. I mean, I had acquired a few dozen skills. Most of them being Asgardian magic and stuff, but nothing I could use to find a way to the Well of Mimi. Why did the path to the well have to be unique with each king? I groaned as something clicked inside my mind at the same time. Each path was specially tailored for each king. I was going at this all wrong. It wasn't me who was supposed to find the well, it was Thor. I mean, sure, the books didn't technically say that only the kings of Asgard could find the well. But, only kings have been recorded to find the well, therefore, it's safe to assume only Thor can find the way. That is not to say, I can't accompany him, it only means that he's the only one able to uncover the path to Mimi. Thor! I called, using a voice-powered spell to make my voice reach him. Seconds later, Thor bursted through the door wielding a sword while looking around in concern. What sibling of mine wants to kill you? Loki. Aldrich. A new one you just discovered? I blinked a few times before breaking into a fit of laughter. None at the moment. Scratch that, Loki is always plotting to kill me, but he's like a cat to me. It amuses me to see him fail and keep on trying, but outside Loki, none that I know. Good. Thor nodded, breathing out in relief. One can never be too careful with my family. 60% of them want to kill you, and the other 40 want to fuck you. I looked at Thor, counting his family members before drawing the percentages. Those numbers don't add up. Thor grinned, wiggling his eyebrows at me in a suggestive manner. Thor, I will shave your head, I warned. Okay, sorry, I was just messing with you, Thor chuckled. As my little brother, I have to do so. It is written in the Book of Older Brothers, a book as old as time itself, full of brotherly wisdom. I deadpanned. Now, putting that aside, little bro, what happened? Why did you summon your mighty handsome older brother? Thor said, smiling from cheek to cheek. I sighed. I think I discovered why I can't find a way to the Well of Mimi. Thor blinked, his attention now fully on me. Why? Well, if my theory is correct, which I feel it is, only you can find the path to the Well of Mimi, I elaborated, taking a seat. I see. Thor beamed, giving me a bone-crushing hug as he picked me from the chair. The fucker was still not fully aware of his new overwhelming strength. Good, now stop breaking my bones, I sighed, chuckling under my breath. Bah, you regenerate, so tough love won't kill you, Thor laughed. I chuckled, he did have a point. I mean, I regenerated faster than he could break my bones, but still, I suppose, we have work to do, so shoo, I added, teleporting out of his brotherly embrace. Indeed we have. Thor nodded. You and me, two incredibly handsome brothers, one more than the other, that one being me, in a quest to find the Well of Mimi and acquire its power. I can hardly wait. So, he wanted me to acquire from Mimi's well as well. How touching. I suppose it would be a quest to be remembered. I nodded. Of course, it will. Thor nodded in an excited manner. It will be our first brotherly quest, no Bald One, no Bucky, and no Sif, just brothers doing what brothers do. I snorted, fine, but first, find the path, otherwise, that won't come to happen, I chuckled. Indeed, Thor nodded, index finger pressed upon his lip. So, how do I do that? This was going to be a hard quest, wasn't it? 2 weeks after my talk with Thor about finding the path to the Well of Mimi, I found myself walking with Thor in a realm I didn't expect him to pick to start his journey. Jotunheim. Of all the realms, including heaven, I didn't expect him to pick the one that hated his family the most. So, why did we come here again? I asked, looking around, left and right, up and down. All that was to see was ice and snow. Fortunately for me, I was pretty much immune to this type of harsh weather. Well, you said I had to find the Well of Mimi, right? Thor said, smiling at me. I nodded. I did say that, yes. And that every path to the well was tailored for the king of the time, right? Thor added this was probably a step-by-step to his grand revelation as to why we were here. I will indulge him. Yes, I also said that, I chuckled. Well, after you told me that, I got thinking, Thor started. That's a dangerous thing, I smirked at him, getting a playful punch from Thor as a result. As I was saying, I got thinking, if each path to the well is tailored for the king of the time, then, this was the place. Thor said, beaming at me, almost as if that was all the revelation. Thor, I'm gonna need more than that, I said, as Thor deflated. Well, most of my life before meeting you was spent here, fighting the frost giants day and night, Thor elaborated. That made sense, and it was accordant to canon now that I remember. I see, and by that logic, the path to the well should be here. I smiled, very good thinking Thor. His logic was not bad at all. Indeed, it is a mighty logic. Thor nodded, preening at the praise like a peacock. So, where do we start? I asked. I don't know, Thor shrugged, looking around. Let's just go with the flow. Go with the flow. I suppose if the path to the well is tailored for Thor, going with the flow was the best option. Very well, I sighed, immediately after, feeling a few energy signatures approaching and moving around. I think the frost giants are aware of our presence, I stated, looking at Thor. Thor grinned, before deflating almost instantly. I guess I should take this opportunity to make peace with them, he said with a hesitant tone. I raised an eyebrow. That was an unexpected turn of events. It would be wise, but what brought this on? Loki, Thor sighed, rubbing his head with a tired smile. I understand, I smiled, patting him on the back. It was easy to see why he wanted to put Asgard's past behind him. Loki, being a frost giant, forced Thor to a new perspective, one he didn't ever expect to have. Do you think they will be open to peace? Thor asked. I shook my head. I mean, from what I read about them in the Royal Library, they are 10 times more stubborn than the average Asgardian, so I doubt they will come around the idea as fast as you want, but don't worry, I'll help you out. Thanks, brother, Thor nodded, taking a deep breath as he turned his head towards the direction the giants were marching from, before saying, I still have no idea how to tell Loki. I know I have to, but I stopped him. Thor, this won't be easy, no matter how you do it. My recommendation: rip the damn thing like a band-aid, tell him what you know, and hope for the best. Thor sighed, maybe. Look, if you want, I can seal his magic and his physical prowess, and throw him into a room with Emily. From adopted kid to another, they have to find some common ground, and besides, I just know that with enough time Emily will melt his, well, everything. I grinned. Ha! She is the cutest thing on all of the 9. I mean, 10 realms without a doubt. Thor barked a laugh. Indeed, I nodded, proud of my little girl. Heck, I'll even throw Nat into that room. Both ought to knock some sense into him. If that doesn't work, we can always force him to take some therapy. Yeah, I guess I could do that. Thor nodded. I am the All-Father now, I can force him to get the mental health he needs. Now that I hear the word force being used out loud, it feels wrong, I muttered. Yes, Thor nodded, maybe we can have Mother force him, that's a power mothers have. Before I could reply, a massive 10 feet long lance made out of solid ice landed on my chest, breaking into 1,000 pieces without even making me budge. If anything, it had tickled. I will take a wild guess and say, there are here, I said, opening my minimap, and yes, there were 2,000 red dots around me, the strongest of them all being only level 180. Thor Odinson and company. I turned around to see an 11-foot-tall frost giant riding a horse towards us. The giant in question was wearing a full set of leather armor, that only covered lower body and shoulders. For a weapon, the giant had a sword, one that, like the lance, seemed to be made out of ice. Laufey, king of the frost giants, LV 180. Company has a name, and it's Alex, I replied, waving at him with a smile. Yes. Alex, Prince of Asgard. Thor nodded. That title will probably affect my relationships with them. Odin had a new kid. Laufey chuckled, and I could almost taste the hate within his tone. No. I replied, pausing for a bit, maybe. I mean, considering the old king had a thing for sealing his children, well, we didn't know how many kids he had. Wait, was that what happened to the other children he had according to my mythology knowledge? So, a prince by marriage, my, I didn't expect Odin to approve of such a thing, Laufey replied, hissing his words out. Prince by marriage? Thor muttered, are you marrying with Sif, and didn't tell me? Thor, he's calling us gay, I clarified for the overly oblivious king. Wait, what do you? Oh, Thor muttered, catching on, okay, fuck peace, I will end you. I sighed, stopping Thor with a look that said, stop and think. Peace? Laufey inquired, unmounting his horse. Yes, I nodded. As the new king of Asgard, Thor is trying to start things with a more peaceful path, so to speak, I smiled. So the old king died, Laufey smiled, his voice full of glee and delight. Father is still alive, Thor replied, cutting Laufey's fantasy short. He retired. Laufey scoffed. Yes, I nodded, seeing as the giants circled us, with said circle becoming smaller and smaller by the second. Look, we are here to make peace with you guys, and maybe look around the place, explore a bit, so to speak, but make no mistake, we can, and will kill you if you do what you are about to do. Laufey scowled, is that so, Prince? He spat. It is, I nodded, without Thor's help, I could easily deal with all of you, without even breaking a sweat. Thor being here makes this overkill. All of you Asgardians are so full of yourself, Laufey hissed, his hand gripping his blade tighter in anger. Then, I will give you a free shot, I chuckled, walking towards the king as Thor snickered in the back. Hit me as hard you can, for, let's say a minute, if you can hurt me, in any way, I will surrender. Laufey blinked, clearly not expecting this approach. You want me to hit you? For an entire minute, and you will what? Do nothing. Yes, I nodded, I will only stay here, and do nothing but see you swing that blade of yours, so go ahead, attack me to your heart's content. You dare to mock me? Laufey snarled, as I got a sense of déjà vu, I guess like father like son. I shook my head, raising hands in a diffusing manner, I would never, I assured the giant, besides, what's the hesitation for? Hitting me most be cathartic by proxy, so just do it. Very well, Laufey spat, reeling his weapon back as he said, if you wish to die so badly, then so be it. With that said, he swung at me with a downward slash, however, once the blade impacted with my body, it shattered into 1,000 little pieces. You have 1 minute, so knock yourself out, I yawned, taking a seat on the ice beneath me as the king looked at me in a combination of horror and shock. Another weapon? The king demanded. 1 minute later. The King of Frost stood in front of me, hundreds of weapons broken around him, as horror dawned on him. He had tried to attack me in every way possible, even ordering some of his soldiers to tag in. Sadly for him, the number of people attacking me made no difference whatsoever, especially when I was at least 200 levels above everyone around me. So I began, cracking my neck as I stood up. What can I say? I was somewhat stiff after sitting in the snow for a whole minute without even blinking to let the King of Frost Giants understand his situation. Laufey took a step back with a horror-stricken face before his demeanor suddenly changed. Your people took our greatest weapon. That's the only reason you boast of your power like this, Asgardian. Thor snorted. I sighed, first of all, I am no Asgardian, I'm a human, from Midgard. A human. You lie. Laufey roared, as I covered my ears, rude much. Yes, I nodded, brushing off the snow from my pants, that now were wet. Body heat plus snow do not make a good combination. I'll change later. A human being a prince of Asgard? Laufey spat in disbelief, as if that was something that could happen. I mean, one of you is a prince too, so. I shrugged. Laufey blinked, before narrowing his eyes at me. So he lives, he muttered, sounding rather disappointed. Father of the Year, Geez, poor Loki, two terrible parents, one after the other, first this guy, and then Odin. Like, what are the odds? Mind your tongue, Asgardian. Laufey snarled, seemingly not happy with my comment. Or what? I asked, tilting my head. You dare? Laufey growled. No, seriously, I am curious. If I don't mind my tone, you will do what exactly? I asked, bringing one hand to my chin. I will. Laufey growled, his tone wavering as he tried to come up with something. You will do nothing, Thor spoke, finally joining the conversation, walking towards me. My brother here is stronger than all of you put together, he said, putting his hand on my shoulder, as he grinned, and I am even mightier, so be careful with what you do, Laufey. Laufey growled, his whole body shaking in rage and impotence. He wanted to kill us, he wanted to tear us apart, but he knew he was outmatched by the powers we wielded. I suppose the question now was, would the king drop his pride and accept his loss, or would he let his own hubris doom him? Eventually, the King of Frost spoke. I might not be able to hurt or kill the both of you, but make no mistake, we will not bow to Asgard, we will not let our hate go. For as long as we exist, our purpose will be to destroy you, so go ahead, walk around our people, do what you please, but know we will always be plotting against you. I sighed, turning to Thor. I guess we could always seal this realm away, to avoid war, and killing them. Like father did with that other realm. Thor replied with a thoughtful look. I mean, they are clearly not open to peace talks. Heck, the king just said he would plot against us for all of eternity, which brings a sense of déjà vu to me, I chuckled. Loki. Thor snorted. Yes, I nodded, cracking a smirk at him. I mean, do they even pose a threat to us? Thor asked, scratching his head. Nope, I shook my head. Don't talk about us like we are not here. Laufey roared, but we did what we had to do, and ignored him. My golem army is bigger than their army, and I could level this world with a few golems, 100 at most, I added. So, we have no need to cut them from Yggdrasil then. Thor mused, very well, we can always try for peace with the next generation. He nodded. Sounds good, I nodded. Stop ignoring us. Laufey shouted, only to be shushed by Thor. But it would be best to cut any means of travel they have, Thor added, a very good point from him. Already on it, I nodded, informing the Ancient One about the situation through the party chat. She should be able to seal any portals this planet has, right? Thor inquired, reading the chat. Yes, and if she can't, I can always use the space stone, I nodded. Good, Thor smiled. That's it. Attack them. Laufey ordered with a roar. Just ignore them, they will tire themselves out, I said with a yawn. So, we just explore the planet with them attacking us? Thor asked. I nodded, yes. Okay, I just wanted to be sure, Thor chuckled. And so, we started walking around the planet, with a horde of frost giants, quote unquote, attacking us. We paid them no heed, which only hurt the giants more. But what can I say, at least they were alive. 2 hours later, the giants had finally tired themselves out or had run out of weapons, one of the two, we would never know. We lost every weapon in our possession. We would never know. So, any feelings? I asked, walking behind Thor. I was asking if he was picking up something that would lead him to the Well of Mimi. Kind of, Thor replied, looking around. I feel like this place is calling me, like this general area. Are you sure you aren't hungry? I asked. I am 65% sure I am not, Thor nodded. His pause didn't convince me. Very well, I sighed. What will you sacrifice on the well? Thor asked. Oh, yeah, the sacrifice, I had almost forgotten about that, no idea to be honest. Well, I will sacrifice both of my eyes. Thor nodded in a proud manner. And, how would you see? I asked. I would. Okay, I see the problem now, Thor sighed. You do? I snorted. I don't know, maybe I won't need my eyes at all, after gaining true infinite knowledge, Thor chuckled. I could always make you some robotic eyes, I sighed. If he was serious about that, I might as well help him. But this brought up the question, what did I want to sacrifice? And would that sacrifice even be valid? I mean, I could regenerate my eyes in under a minute, so what was the point of sacrificing something if you get it back right away? Oh. Can they shoot lasers? Thor beamed at me. Sure, I chuckled. Yes. Thor exclaimed, like a happy little kid, bouncing around. All while I tried to think, what would I be willing to give away? After 2 long days of searching for the path to the well, Thor and I decided to take a break and set a camp on a nearby cave we had found. I wanted to go home and sleep on my bed, but Thor was convinced camping would help in our endeavor. So, I conceded to his whims. He was the one that had to find the path to the well, after all. So here I was, in a dark, cold cave, with nothing but ice around. To be fair, the entire planet was a massive cube of ice. Tomorrow, we will find it, Thor declared, as he cooked on the fire of our camp, what appeared to be a fish, made out of ice. Amen to that, I yawned, opening my inventory to pull a hot and ready pepperoni pizza. Hey! That's cheating, Thor complained, seeing my deliciously tempting pizza, steamy and ready to be eaten. Want some? I asked with a small knowing grin. Yes, yes I do, Thor nodded, tossing the fish out the cave like a military-grade missile. Okay, I chuckled, grabbing one extra pizza from my inventory. Your powers are the best, Thor smiled, beaming at me as I gave him his pizza. I know, I chuckled. Thor smiled, grabbing a slice of pizza. Do you think we will find the well soon? He asked, taking a bite of his slice. I hummed, musing at the thought, maybe. The books didn't give a time frame, so it could be fast, or slow for all we know. I answered. I see, Thor muttered, looking rather down. Don't worry, like you said, maybe we will find it tomorrow, I smiled, trying to cheer him up. Yeah, Thor chuckled, maybe on that garden behind you, who knows? I blinked. Did he say garden? Did you say? Never mind, why am I asking, I sighed, turning around to see exactly what Thor had said, a beautiful flowered path, leading to a garden. I will go ahead and assume that's the path to the well, I said, confused as to who this garden had manifested behind me without alerting me whatsoever. You think? Thor asked, sounding rather hopeful. I sighed. Thor would be the end of me. Yes, I think. Huzzah! Thor roared in delight, before sitting once again down. But first, our pizza. First hour, hell no, it's to go now, I replied, grabbing Thor by the cape, and throwing him into the garden path with me following him close behind. Hey! Thor complained, still clutching to his pizza in a rather possessive manner. Thor, we can eat pizza any other time, let's first deal with this. Okay. I sighed, scratching the back of my head. Thor huffed, taking a new slice from the box as he glared at me. Then, he took a bite, and with his mouth full said, easy for you to say, you have pizza on your planet, all I have in mine is boring Asgardian food. Thor, for the love of, you don't have pizza in Asgard? I asked, to which Thor nodded. We'll fix that after our trip, don't worry, I promised him, for I now understood his pain. Okay, Thor nodded, but I keep the box with me, I'm hungry. I chuckled, fine. So, what now? Thor asked between bites. Good question. Taking a deep breath, I started to survey my surroundings. Behind us, there was nothing, meaning that the moment we entered this garden path, the icy cave had disappeared, inferring whatever we walked through was a portal. Beyond that, the world around us now seemed to be one full of flowers and greenery. It was almost breathtaking in a sense. Beneath me, there was a path of rocks, the only part of the world around us without flowers, or green of any kind. The path in question seemed to lead beyond the horizon in a straight line. I will take a guess, and say, we have to follow the path, I said, pointing at the rocks beneath my feet. I see, Thor hummed, taking a bite out of another slice. Fine by me, he shrugged. Very well then, lead the way, O mighty king, I sighed. I feel like you mocking me, Thor said, narrowing his eyes. Maybe, I winked. I will tell Emily, Thor smirked. You bastard, I gasped, holding a chuckle. Thor, however, couldn't, and started laughing. Okay, enough jokes, let's go to the well. I nodded, following Thor. We followed the path of rocks for hours, more than once questioning whether the rocks lead anywhere or not, bored, as the scenery around us barely changed as time went by. However, after hours of walking seemingly aimlessly, we found ourselves face to face with a cave. One without green. You think this is it? Thor asked. I nodded, it has to be. The cave in question felt different from the scenery around us. It felt, in a way, more alive, more powerful, so to speak, as if the entrance was speaking to me, in a language I couldn't understand or hear, but somehow could feel. It was a powerful, yet odd feeling. Do you also feel like the cave is talking to you? Thor asked, turning to look at me. Once again, I nodded, yes. Now, I had no doubts, the cave was also beckoning at Thor like the call of a siren in the sea, meaning that without a doubt, this cave held within its damp walls the well of Mimi. I just knew it. Let's go, Thor said, walking towards the cave. I smiled, excited our quest was coming to an end as I followed Thor close behind. First few steps into the cave, it was painfully clear to see there was no light around, almost as if all forms of light had been sucked or erased by a black hole or something. That wouldn't do, so frowning at the situation, I created a ball of light using my mana as to illuminate our path. Something Thor immediately thanked me for. With our path now illuminated, I found Thor was a single step away from falling into the biggest set of stairs I had ever seen in my life, stairs that seemed to lead deeper and deeper into the cave. Do we walk? Thor asked. I shook my head. Fuck walking, if the stairs were as big as I imagined, walking them would take hours. Nah, let's flight. 6 fucking hours. It took us 6 fucking hours to reach the bottom of the stairs. We flew at top speed, for all that time, and still took us 6 fucking hours. 6 hours of flying to find a door. Thor roared, for indeed at the end of the stairs, there was nothing but an old-looking door and some dead rats. Thor, open the fucking door. I sighed, rolling my eyes. Oh, right, Thor chuckled, pushing the door open to reveal more darkness. However, something else happened. Thor Odinson, a voice spoke, the moment the door was finally wide open. Alexa Walker. Disembodied voice. Thor replied, sounding a bit unsure. The well of wisdom awaits for you too, the voice replied, echoing through the cave. Yes. Thor shouted, once again, raping my ears. Stop shouting when I am 2 feet away. I shouted back, slapping the back of his head. Sorry. Thor chuckled, scratching the back of his head, I'm just so happy we found the well. Same, I chuckled, my ear pain already gone for the most part. Come. The voice said, and immediately that what laid beyond the door was illuminated, revealing the well, and the decapitated head of Mimi blinking as it stared at us. Creepy, I muttered. I apologize, my body is in the laundry, the head replied, his lifeless eyes staring into mine. I blinked, not knowing what to do, laugh. Apologize. Thor, however, didn't have that internal debate and was laughing his ass off on the floor. It was a joke, the head added, chuckling at my reaction. Oh, well, it was a good one, I chuckled awkwardly. I looked at Mimi, who looked back at me with an emotionless look. It was almost as if staring at a corpse, giving me an unsettling feeling that crawled down my back, in an unusual way. It wasn't fear. It was something else. Thor Odinson, take a step into the well, and make your offering, Mimi spoke, his eyes never leaving me. It almost felt familiar. Wish me luck, Thor smiled at me, walking into the well with a sense of uncertainty. You are mighty, you need no luck, I replied, trying to assure my friend things would go okay. Indeed, Thor nodded, taking the first step into the seemingly bottomless well. Something I had failed to notice before. The well felt infinite. Almost like the stones in a way, but way less abstract. Now, submerge, and make your sacrifice, and claim your power, Mimir spoke, as Thor walked deeper and deeper into the well, his body begging to glow in a faint yet powerful form light that seemed to be composed in its entirety out of pure cosmic energy. Thor said nothing in return, diving into the well, leaving me alone with the head of Mimi, staring deep into my eyes. So, I guess it's my turn? I asked, to which the head said nothing. This was getting rather awkward. Eventually, however, the head sighed, his lifeless gaze moving from me to the well. You seem to misunderstand, the well has nothing to offer you. What? I asked, frowning. The well was the source of infinite knowledge, omniscience in a drinkable form, how could that not have anything to offer me? As I said, the well has nothing to offer you, Mimi replied, his eyes once again back to me. Is it because I'm a human? I asked. Perhaps that was the reason. Perhaps only Asgardians could use the well, or in even more restrictive case scenario, perhaps only could Thor use the well. No, once again you misunderstand. Perhaps it is my bad, Mimi sighed, looking to the side. I suppose being in a cave for all over a few millennia has dulled my social skills to a greater extent than I originally assumed, who knows, but that's beyond the point is. He sighed, clicking his tongue, the well can't offer you anything, after all, what's the point of offering you something you already have? Something I already have. I apologize if I sound vulgar, but what in the fuck are you smoking? Do I look omniscient? Mimi snorted, cracking a smile at me, which unsettled me even more than his normal emotionless self. So much power, so much knowledge, yet all locked within a lie. I scowled. Look, I came here for answers, can you give any? I'm tired of the mysterious load of crap. Mimi smiled. Unfortunately, I can't give you what you want, for it is beyond my power to do so, but I can show you, he chuckled. Perhaps the well of knowledge can offer you something, after all. So, I have to give something, right? I asked. No, Mimi replied, back to his emotionless self. Well, good for me, I sighed, walking into the well. Know this, Alex, I can only show you but a brief moment of what you wish to know. Do with that what you can, Mimi said, and soon after a bright light engulfed me. The moment the light engulfed, everything around me changed fast, my environment exploding with colors. The change was brief, and lasted less than a second, when I found myself once again standing in front of Mimi, but somehow, even though it had been so fast, it had showed me so much. That brief but powerful moment had shown me the beginning of everything. The spark of creation. I knew it. I was sure of it. But the question now was, why the hell had the well shown me that? I saw the beginning of everything, I muttered. Why? Why did I see the beginning of everything? I asked Mimi. What I showed you is nothing more than something you have already witnessed, Mimi replied in his tone grave. I can't tell you the reason behind such vision, only that you already know, or should know this. What was I supposed to do with that? Was my origin in this universe linked to the beginning of it all? If I am allowed to give you a piece of advice, I recommend you visit the roots of Yggdrasil. They will show you more, much more than I can show you, Mimi added, to which I silently nodded. After that vision, I wanted to know more. Because for some reason I had yet to understand, seeing that had made me feel incomplete. The king emerges, Mimi said, gaining my attention once again, as the water of the well started to glow, with Thor slowly emerging from the well, both of his eyes missing. Brother Thor spoke, turning to look at me with a wide smile. So you gave both of your eyes in the end, I commented. I did, not that I need them any longer, Thor chuckled, walking out of the well, his entire body giving a different aura, almost as if he had matured decades the brief moment he had been in there. Do you still want robotic eyes? I asked. I do, Thor smiled, giving a bear hug, as he whispered close to my ear, we need to talk. I blinked, nodding to his request as I turned to look at Mimi. Where are the roots of Yggdrasil? Down that path, Mimi replied, as a new path appeared, once seemingly made out of the roots of several tangled trees, weaving a tapestry of unique design. Very well, I nodded, walking with Thor out of the well, following the root path. What happened? I eventually asked Thor. Did you know you are older than me? Thor replied. I stopped, turning to look at him with a befuddled look. No. I know so much now, however, you seem to be a blank in my knowledge. All I know is that you are older than me, and father, and his father, older than Asgard. To summarize, Thor sighed, scratching the back of his head. I wanted to ask you, to see if it rang any bells, but you seem as confused as me. Mimi showed me a vision, I said, taking a deep breath. It didn't last long, a second at most, but it was about the beginning of time, the beginning of all, a vision that according to him was something I had witnessed by myself. So, as old as the universe, huh? Thor mused, before breaking into a fit of laughter. I knew you were a god, all right. I smiled, at least one of us wasn't perturbed by the implication of that. Mimi POV. He had finally come. Like that man had said he would. Alex and Thor had come together. Well done, Mimi. I did what you told me to do, I replied, as the man that had been visiting me for the last few years entered my humble abode. The joke about your body being in the dry cleaning, chef's kiss, the man replied, laughing. That was your joke, you told me to say it, I replied, wondering once again, how someone so powerful could be so childish at the same time. I know, that's why it was a perfect joke, the man chuckled, moving his hand a bit, manifesting a can of Coke to it. Want one? He offered. I looked at him, and replied, unless you pour the drink into my mouth. I don't think so. Without a body, things were difficult, The only good side of all of this was the knowledge it all brought to me, knowledge that seemed to be useless when it came to this man. I knew everything, about everyone, except him, or Alex. Why didn't you say so? The man smiled, snapping his fingers, and just like that, in the blink of an eye, I found myself with a body. It all happened so fast, I couldn't even register what he did. One moment my head was laying on the ground, and the next, I was standing, looking at him in disbelief. Just who are you? I dared to ask. A man, doing man things. The man shrugged, tossing me a can of Coke. I grabbed the can midair, and laughed. How could I not? I had hands. I could feel things once again. It was all so unbelievable. I caught it, I muttered, looking at the can in awe. Now, drink it, the man smiled, taking a sip of his drink. I chuckled, before realizing this would not last. Nothing good was ever meant to be, at least not for me. When will this body go away? Well, that was a more depressing answer I was prepared for. The man sighed, scratching the back of his head. Nothing ever comes for free, I replied. I was a living example of such. Well, that's true, the man nodded, index fingers pressed upon his lips. But, you already paid the price, I guess. I mean, I wanted you to guide Alex, and you did, so, body as a reward. A simple vision, and he had given me back everything I lost. I see. No matter how much I wanted to believe it, it all felt unreal. You are undersling your helping hand, the man chuckled, almost as if reading my thoughts. I am reading them, he added with a snicker. The point is, giving you a body, or a Coke, is technically the same for me. I make the same effort for both things. The perks of being omnipotent and shit, so don't worry. Do try to pretend you are ahead when the boy comes back though. Don't want him to question things too much. I nodded. I might not understand him, or why he does what he does, but I would not turn this down. After all, if I am to be trapped in the well of knowledge, I might as well have a body. Do you think he will succeed on the roots? I asked. Without a doubt, the man replied, his voice sounding almost proud. I wonder why. I am proud, the man confirmed. Right, he can read my mind, I see, but why? I don't know. Read my mind, the man winked. I can't, I sighed. He knew the answer to that. That sounds like a you problem, the man chuckled. I suppose it is, I nodded, opening my can of Coke to drink, my first drink in a few millennia. I wonder how it tastes. I mean, I know how it tastes thanks to my infinite knowledge, but knowing something in theory and in practice are two different things. Emily Walker POV. Daddy was once again busy on an important mission. So it was up to me to make sure his return was one full of love and warmth. Which is why I was currently on my way to the kitchen to start baking some cookies. The pre-Daddy arrival cookies. I had, after all, to try them before Daddy arrived. Why? Well, I had to select the best ones for him. And for that I had to test a few recipes I had found in a book. A few hundred recipes. My determination knew no limits. There was no cookie frontier I would not cross. I would conquer that cookie mountain. And deliver Daddy the best cookies he has ever eaten. For I was his daughter. So was Nat, but I loved Daddy more. The point is, I will ensure Daddy is happy with my cookies. No matter what. Time to make some cookies, I declared, kicking the doors of the kitchen open wide, to find a girl around my age, with mousy brown hair and vibrant fire-red eyes already using the Asgardian royal kitchen. What kind of cookies? The girl asked. I blinked. Well, every kind, I replied with a chuckle. That's a lot of cookies, the girl giggled. Are they for someone special? Yes, I nodded. After all, Daddy was the most special person in the whole universe. I see, then the cookies are a must. The girl nodded, clapping her hands together. I know, how about I help you? I have been told I make some delicious cookies. I hummed before asking, by how many people? I mean, I had to be sure she knew what she was doing. Daddy deserved only the absolute best. More than 10, the girl offered. More than 10. That's a lot of people. Okay, you are in. Yay. The girl smiled, beaming at me. So what's your name? I asked, approaching my new friend, a friend forged through the power of cookies. I walked with Thor through the path that Mimi had pointed for us, for hours. Eventually reaching the roots, much to my surprise, the roots were just like their name suggested, literal roots. I was surprised by this. For the longest time I always thought the tree of Yggdrasil was more of an idea than a tangible concept, with the roots being something else, like, I don't know, a collection of portals connecting the 9 realms. However, it seemed I was clearly wrong. Though I suppose in a peculiar way, I wasn't entirely wrong if I think about it. Because even though the roots were literal roots, they gave off a vibe, a feeling that was well beyond anything I had ever seen. They vibrated with cosmic energy. Even from afar, I could feel the roots, and how the cosmic energy moved within them. In short, the tree, the roots, everything was but an illusion in a sense. The real form of the tree was one of pure energy. Pure cosmic energy. Now what? Thor muttered, turning to me. I don't know, I replied. If my Norse mythology knowledge was anything to go by, Odin accessed the roots by almost killing himself. Which was something I was not willing to do. I guess it's time to die, Thor grinned. Excuse me? I asked, turning to look at him with a look of disbelief. Well, Father gained the power of Yggdrasil by almost killing himself, right? Thor asked, to which I nodded, already knowing where this was going. Thor, you don't have to beat your father in every sacrifice, I replied. Bah. Worry not, I won't truly die, I know it, a perk of giving both of my eyes to the well, I know a whole lot more. Thor smiled, trying to reassure me his plan was sound. So, you will kill yourself, but not really. How does that even work? I asked. Well, I will die, but in the process will merge my essence with Yggdrasil, which in turn will, in theory, resurrect me, but with the knowledge of the runes, and much, much more, Thor answered. I sighed, rubbing my temples. I don't think it's a good idea. That, in theory, part feels uncertain. Worry not, brother of uncertain age and origin, I thought. Shall conquer this mighty tree, for I am worthy, for I am mighty. Thor declared, his voice booming across the room. So Thor, even with the knowledge of the well, was still Thor, the one I knew. If you die, I will find a way to resurrect you, just so that I can kill you, is that clear? I asked, sighing, knowing very well, he would stop at nothing, for he was mighty stubborn. I wouldn't have it any other way. Thor beamed at me, giving me a hug. Now go, and kill yourself, but not completely, I smiled. Will do. Thor laughed, walking towards the runes. Now, the question was, how would I access the roots, without the killing myself part? I guess I would have time to figure that out, while Thor did his thing. Thor did as he had said he would, and hanged himself to the roots of Yggdrasil with a chain I gave him, and then proceeded to kill himself, in that specific order. Needless to say, it was a disturbing event to witness. But I tried to pay it no mind, as I focused on trying to find another way to access the runes of creation. One that didn't involve the possibility of killing myself. Eventually, an idea came to mind. Minutes after Thor killed himself. What if I entered the roots of Yggdrasil with my soul, without killing myself? Months ago, I had trained with the Ancient One in the arts of soul casting, all in an attempt to prepare for the quantum virus, something we eventually discarded and instead used a golem, because it was safer. Nonetheless, I still learned a valuable skill, soul casting. A magic tree that required the user to be in astral form, aka soul form, to use this particular skill. So, if I accessed that form, and entered the tree, I should, in theory, be able to access the same state of being Thor was at. Because, technically, that was what Thor did, killing himself, so that his soul entered the roots. Meaning, in theory, my idea should work. Okay, I sighed, cracking my neck from side to side, before accessing my astral form, leaving my body in a sitting position on the ground. Even to this day, seeing my body from a third point of view was bizarre, so to speak. But enough about that, time to see if my theory worked. With that thought in mind, I turned around to face the roots, leaving my body behind to see something I was not fully expecting. The roots themselves had changed, or rather disappeared, leaving behind something new, something that looked different. It was almost as if I was staring into a brain, more specifically the neurons of a brain, working, sending signals between each other, millions of them each passing second. The blinking lights these neurons sent between each other made the image of the roots, but unlike the image I was once able to see with my body, this image was ever changing, each instance of it being vastly different, but in essence the same. I guess it worked, I muttered with a smile. Now, it was time to see if I could access the roots themselves. Collecting my thoughts, I approached the roots, and placed my hand on them, and immediately felt a pull, almost as if the roots were calling me, beckoning me to let go, and join them. I smiled. My theory had worked. The question now was, would I be able to leave the roots, if I accessed them? I guess I would find out. The moment I let go and allowed Yggdrasil to swallow me, several notifications appeared. I was gaining knowledge, understanding about the runes. It was all automatic, like blinking. Each passing second I knew more, I gained more, I became more. It was beautiful. I felt at peace within the tree. I felt good. It was almost addictive. I wonder if the runes will help me understand all the shit that's been going on. Alex Walker POV. So much knowledge. So much to see. The knowledge within the roots of Yggdrasil was, for the lack of a better word, beautiful. I could see beyond the limits of my imagination, and still fail to comprehend so many things, and yet, somehow, I would, as time passed within this marvelous dimension, understand it all. I couldn't help but wondered, was this how being omniscient felt? Was this feeling of bliss a common occurrence for an event like this? I just couldn't, it was all so addicting. The more I learned, the more I wanted to stay. That was dangerous, a terrifying side effect. If it weren't for my well-being as high as it was, this trip could have and would have become a permanent arrangement. I mean, even now, with all my supposedly unshakable will, I was feeling anxious at the thought of leaving. The worst kind of disease is that which brings addiction. I wonder if Thor is experiencing the same feeling. I hope he doesn't succumb. I chuckled, feeling my mind getting more and more knowledge about the runes. I was so close to having what I wanted, so close to being able to leave, but it almost seemed like Yggdrasil was trying to seduce me into staying, by extending my trip within it, for as long as possible. I was learning so much. But not about what I wanted. Yggdrasil was showing me things of great value, but in the process, it was purposely hiding the knowledge I was seeking. I won't stay, I muttered, no matter how much you tempt me, regardless of how good it felt to be here, to be enlightened. I had things to do, and a job to finish. After all, being a dad, it's a full-time job. 2 hours later, I pushed myself out of Yggdrasil and entered my body. Then, I shuddered. Fucking tree, I sighed, my hands shaking. My entire body was craving to enter that state of enlightenment, of nirvana I had a few moments ago been. Thankfully for me, my mind was clear. New ailment acquired equals the curse of Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil offers those who entered it infinite knowledge and power. However, the drawback is that its usage places great strain on the user's mind and spirit, eventually overpowering their will and causing the victim to succumb and become a part of Yggdrasil itself. Curse equals for the next 12 hours you will feel the unshakable need to enter the roots of Yggdrasil once again. This curse, while active, will give the user the following debuffs. Minus 30% int. Minus 55% DEX. Minus 45% will. Minus 78% PO. Duration equals 12H. The curse only affects those with high enough WIS and int. Fuck that. Taking a deep breath, I equipped the time stone and aged myself a day, and just as I had expected, the debuff curse was gone. Now to help Thor. Turning around, I approached Thor, and placed my hand on his head, before sending a pulse of mana through his body, trying to locate his soul. It took a bit, especially considering how big the roots were from a spiritual sense, but after a few pulses, I found Thor, or rather his essence. Thor, you need to get out, I thought, connecting my mind to the roots through Thor's body. Brother. Thor replied, sounding surprised. The roots will try to snare you into staying, I replied. Worry not. I'm almost done. Thor replied, and I could almost feel him grin at me. I sighed, very well, I'll give you some extra time. But if you don't come out, I will drag you back. I stated. I wouldn't have it any other way. Thor laughed, as I closed the link. With that out of the way, I took a seat on the ground and wondered, why did he sound more stable? It was almost as if the roots were not even trying to snare him. I felt no hesitations on his words, he was the same. I'm back. Thor shouted, snapping me out of my long reverie before he started coughing and gagging. Chain. Neck. Right, the chain he had used to hang himself. Sighing, I destroyed the chain with a move of my hand, and immediately used Observe on him. And just like I had suspected, he was okay. No curse affecting him. So, the big ol' tree tried to snare you? Thor asked, cracking his neck. I nodded, wondering why it had only affected me, and not him. Wait, could it be that Thor has so little int and WIS the roots were unable to get through his thick skull? I can't believe it. You avoided the curse, because you counter the curse. I laughed. Thor furrowed his eyebrows for a second before he started laughing. Of course, how could such a thing affect me? I am mighty. He indeed was. Mighty lucky. So, did you learn about the runes? I asked. At this, Thor grinned. I did. I chuckled, me too. I wonder what will come from here. I also wonder, will this be enough to face that monster? Now that my mind was clear, and fully awake, and not drunk with the power the roots offered, I was able to remember everything it showed me, amongst those things. The inescapable awakening of Null, the King in Black. Don't worry, Thor said, putting his hand on my shoulder, we will face that beast, together. So he had seen it too. I smiled. We will maybe for good measure I should just blast the symbiote planet away. It would certainly weaken his reach once he awakens, that or seriously piss him off. Maybe I could try and break his connection them, who knows. Let's go, Thor spoke. I nodded. It was time to go home, and take a break, before things once again went south. Hela Odin's daughter POV. Battered. Broken. Weakened. But alive. I had taken the coward's way out. But had successfully tricked everyone into thinking I was dead. Sadly, I had lost in the process the Odin force. Meaning my chances of getting the throne were slim to none, and I was being magnanimously generous. Alex alone was stronger than me, and now my pathetic little brother was by all rights the king, sporting all the power one should have. I guess it could be worse. I could be dead. As humiliating as it was using cheap tricks to survive, I had conquered death. Again. Never before I had been so grateful. Asgard and my life were still linked, even without the Odin force, a curse given to me by my father, that came as a blessing to me that day. A curse he engraved in my soul to ensure I would never destroy Asgard because destroying it would destroy me. A bit overkill if you ask me, considering that at the time he cursed me, I only had half of the Odin force, therefore giving me the same ailment. It was like putting salt over salt. Oh well. I suppose I ought to thank the old man for his terrible parenting, otherwise, I would be dead. Hela and talking about the devil. Well, ain't you a sight for sore eyes, father, I replied, turning around. Alex Walker POV. I opened a portal back to Asgard, leaving Thor in his room, before going back to mine. After this weird and long journey, I needed to rest and think about a lot of things, at least for a bit. I had so many discoveries and yet felt in the same place as before. I knew much, yet nothing. I sighed, slumping into my bed as I pondered over this journey, over my findings. Why was nothing ever easy? Daddy. I blinked, turning to look at the door, as I heard Emily call. I smiled. Yes. I replied, which was all Emily needed to kick my door open. I have a gift for you. Emily beamed at me, showcasing on her little hands a plate full of delicious-looking cookies, and other pastries. I chuckled, pushing myself off the bed. Well, how can I say no to that? Emily giggled, putting the plate on my bed. So, what do we have here? I asked as Emily sat on my bed, happy to explain what she had made. Well, first, let's start with the classics. Emily smiled, pointed to a small pile of chocolate chip cookies, extra chips, just how I liked them. These, as you can see, are chocolate chip cookies a la Alex, she giggled. I nodded, taking one, and let me tell you, it was delicious. Please sir, restrained from trying to the exhibition during the presentation, Emily sighed, holding back a giggle. Yes m'm. I nodded, doing a military salute. Okay, as I was saying, those are chocolate chip cookies a la Alex. Emily smiled, once again pointing at the pile of cookies, that was currently missing 2 cookies. I took another one while she blinked, super speed things. HM I nodded, my mouth full with the second cookie. Then, we have the orange cookies, not a popular choice, I know. But I like them. Emily nodded, mostly to herself. HM I nodded, my mouth full with the third cookie I had just taken while she was looking away. Then, we have these. Emily pointed, showing me a collection of pastries I had not seen before, at least not until today. What is that one? I asked, pointing at one. Those are some I made with my new friend, Vest. Emily smiled. Vest, like, vest. I asked, holding a snort. Daddy. Emily gasped, before turning to ponder, maybe. She said she got that name, 'cause she's the best, but with a V, a very vest, so. I snorted. Anyway, as I was saying, those are some I made with my friend Vest. The one you particularly pointed out is called Rivani. Emily grinned, giving me a piece. Rivani is a syrup-soaked cake made with semolina and yogurt, known for its slight lemony taste. It was hard to make, but Vest is very good at teaching, so I eventually learned. I smiled, looking at the slice of cake before taking a bite. The moment I did, the whole world was put into perspective, shaking me to the very core as everything else just disappeared. I felt my breathing becoming hard and ragged as tears fell into my lap. Just then, I realized I was crying. Dad? Emily asked, her voice soft and full of uncertainty. I looked at her, eyes still full of tears, and smiled at her. I am baby girl. I wasn't sad or happy, I was both, and it didn't make any sense. Then again, tears come from the heart and not from the brain, so it didn't have to make sense. That little piece of dessert, it felt like home to me. Why are you crying? Emily asked, concern lacing her tone. Well, it was so good it put tears into my eyes. I laughed, hugging her tight. You are an amazing cook, princess, the best of the best. Thanks, Daddy, Emily replied, before almost whispering, would you like to try the rest? I beamed at her, flashing her my happiest smile, of course. Alice Walker POV. Alex and the rest of the extras were in Asgard, leaving me to plan and move ahead with my reason for being here. Acquiring more power. I was strong, but in the great scheme of things, I was painfully weak. Unlike Alex, I didn't have an infinite potential. I just couldn't compete with the original. But, who said I had to play by the rules? He had his absurd potential, and I had my shortcuts. A girl had to do what she had to do to survive. As simple as that. I would destroy them, those who took everything from me, no matter the cost, and would strike down anyone that decided to stand in my way. Consequences be damned, after all, I had nothing to lose, not anymore. I would kill as many as I had to, as long as they were a part of the great sum. The TVA would pay. No matter the cost. They would pay. You don't have to do this, oh right. I had a man nailed to a wall with my blades. I had almost forgotten, silly me. Oh, but I do, silly. I beamed at him, summoning another blade before plunging it into his heart, or where his heart should be. Eternals are confusing creatures, like, for real, where can I get a biology book on them? It would make my work considerably easy. Why are you doing this? Ugh, always the same question. It seems unoriginality, it's a pattern in our universe. Well, my dear, what's your name? I asked. I always forget to ask them before I kill them. I need to work on my manners. Druig, and I'm an eternal Druig. OOF, his parents didn't love him. Well, Druig, I'm doing this because you little Eternals are full of yummy nutrients I need to grow into a big girl. I giggled. I tried to do this before, in every timeline I managed to jump in, but the TVA always caught up to me. But here I was free to finally do what I had set to do, starting with Druig here, the Peruvian Eternal. Wait, does that make me racist? Should've I, killed a white one first? Meh. You plan to eat me? Druig asked, shock. Don't flatter yourself, but yes, I nodded, not in the literal sense, I'm not that crazy, but yeah, I will eat you, and your friends, one by one. After all, I need to finish my appetizers before I go to the main course. The big boy. You are crazy. Druig muttered, trying once again to control my mind. I have a doctor's note and everything. I giggled, as he continued to try and breach into my mind. Silly Druig, you can't control a broken mind. After all, madness is the best shield against such things. Oh well, as amusing as it is seeing you try, I have things to do, so, bon appetit to me. No, get away. Get away. The runes were powerful, more than anything I had ever acquired, perhaps even more so than the Infinity Stones, because unlike them, the power the knowledge of the runes offered, was permanent. The runes granted their wielder access to knowledge that he or she normally couldn't obtain, knowledge beyond the veils of limitation. However, not all knowledge offered by the runes was the same. In fact, what I obtained, and what Thor obtained, was unimaginably different in a fundamental sense. You see, the knowledge the runes provide to those adventurous enough to enter the roots of Yggdrasil depends on what a person has lived through. For example, in Odin's case, because he was a god, and had lived all of his life as one, he became all-knowing of the ways of the gods, because that was the only connection he really had. For Thor, it was a bit different, because Thor himself didn't consider himself a god, at least not completely, not anymore. He saw himself as a human as well, because of his connections to me, and because of this self-perception of humanity, he was allowed to gain even more knowledge than Odin, giving him not only all the knowledge of the gods but also of humans, effectively making him omniscient in both the mortal and godly ways. My case. It was a bit complicated. For the most part, I gained the same power Thor had gained, meaning, I was omniscient in both the mortal and godly ways, but what I had received from the roots didn't stop there. I had also gained something new, like the piece of a puzzle, something incomplete. And yet, something that felt important. Also, the ways of the gods I had, for whatever reason acquired, were very different from Thor's. I was omniscient all right, but from a different pantheon. Which brought another thing: the omniscient the roots offered was limited to what the user was connected to, meaning Thor was all-knowing, in the Norse ways, and human ways technically. Beyond that, the runes had also given me various skills, like the ability to will other beings into nothingness. The skill was called Erasure, max level. Or, the ability to give life, like real life, to anything, or if no need, the ability to keep said life from extinguishing, like Odin did to Mimir's head. Genesis, LV1. Macro, LV1, and skill that allows me to control others, with thoughts or words. I only need to be stronger, basically, mind control, but without the mind part. Time, LV1. The ability to stop time, but without the time stone. The area of the skill is around countrysized, and it only affects those who are at least 100 levels below me. Space, LV1. The ability to control the space around me, but without the space tone. Fundamental force, strong force, LV1. It allows me to manipulate the very force that binds protons and neutrons together in atomic nuclei. Basically, I can create nukes with a thought. I think, haven't tried this one, or any of them for that matter. Fundamental force, weak force, LV1. It allows me to manipulate the forces of nature that underlie some forms of radioactivity. It basically allows me to the decay of unstable subatomic particles such as mesons, and such. Fundamental force, electromagnetism, LV1. With this, I can create, shape, and manipulate electromagnetism, which accounts for almost all physical phenomena observable to the unaided human senses, including, but not limited, to light, magnetism, and electricity. Fundamental force, gravity, LV1. With this, I can create, shape, move, control, interact with and manipulate gravity in a vast array of manners, molding the natural phenomenon in which all things with mass or energy like planets, stars, and light, attract or gravitate toward one another. Pretty cool powers, huh? Well, yeah, I just had to level them up, most of them anyways. Funny enough, Thor didn't get these skills, save for erasure, genesis, time, macro, and space. The rest of his skills were more magical in a sense. I got the science side of the deal, I suppose. Daddy. I made more Revani, Emily announced, as she entered my office, my Asgardian office, which was in its entirety made out of gold for the most part. Why? No idea, it was like that when I got it, maybe Thor flexing his money or something. You did. I beamed at her, happy to eat more of that piece of heaven she had made, like, for real, the girl had a gift. Yep, Emily nodded, before snapping her fingers, making an entire cake of Revani appear out of nowhere. I could already feel my mouth salivating more than normal. Well, don't mind if I do. I grinned, snatching the cake off her hands. By the way, Daddy, have you eaten anything besides my cakes? Emily asked, tilting her head to the side in pondering. I nodded. As much as I loved sweets, I wasn't a fan of overeating a particular type of food. I enjoyed the variety, pizza, some tacos, the same as you, but in the office. I smiled. Emily nodded. By the way, by the laws of the Walker House, Section O, Paragraph D, you owe Nat and I 10 days of undivided attention, which with interest comes to 2 weeks, and 2 hours, with 15 minutes, and 13 seconds. I blinked, looking at her with my mouth full of cake. What laws? I chuckled. The laws from the Book of Rules Nat and I wrote, the Walker family rules. Uncle Bucky is the editor. Emily nodded with a bright smile. I am. Bucky shouted. So 2 weeks of undivided attention, huh? I chuckled, ruffling her hair. Sure, rules are rules, and I can't break them. I winked, closing my books and work stuff with the snap of my fingers. As I did this, Nat entered the room, with an Asgardian flamethrower attached to her back, and war paint on her face like Rambo. Abort, Nat. He said yes. Emily shouted. I raised an eyebrow at Emily before turning to Nat. What were you planning to do with that? Get grounded. Grounded? Nat asked before chuckling. I see the confusion. This is no common flamethrower. This is a modified one. It shots Pepsi, and nothing more. What? Okay, I'm confused. What? I asked. Well, our plan was to make your office so sticky with dry soda, that you would have no other option but to spend 2 weeks with us, Emily explained. Their plan was highly devious. Girls, you know all you have to do is ask, right? I asked. Perhaps they thought I had been distant lately. If so, I would make it my mission to remember them. I was, and would always be there for their. We know, Emily chuckled, waving me off, but we like to scheme. Nat shrugged. It's fun to plan contingency plans. Anyways, I'm off to Loki's room. I'ma make his room sticky land. Nat laughed before darting off to pursue her evil plan. Her laugh was an evil one. I kind of want to see that, I muttered. Me too, movies can wait, Emily added, and so, we darted off to see Nat do her thing. We had popcorn and everything. After my 2 obligatory weeks with my daughters, as per code of the Walker family, I went back home and decided to start training my new skills a bit. While powerful, the skills I had obtained were rather low in level, therefore ineffective for battle situations, at least for now. Erasure was easy enough to use, and was already in max level, though, to be honest, it was weird to will something out of existence. It felt like waking up from a dream. The rest of the skills, well, they were easy enough to level up, relatively speaking. I mean, they took twice as much to level up, compared to the other skills. If I had to take a guess, it had a lot to be with the fact the skills were absurdly OP, so, therefore, they had to be harder to level up. But, if I had anything, it was time. Should I use the rare candies? I hummed at the thought. I mean, when would using them be a good idea? Brother Thor said as he entered the room, as loudly as ever. Yes, I said as I looked up from my papers. I was wondering if you wanted to train. Thor grinned. I shook my head. I still have things to do, amongst them, making you a pair of eyes. Something I had been forgetting about. Oh, that, yeah, Thor nodded, opening his eyeless eyes. You, I muttered. Look into the void. Thor cackled. Okay, that's it, you need some eyes. I shuddered, opening a portal. I had some eyes to acquire. I opened a portal to Xander, one of the best planets when it comes to technology, all in the search for a pair of prophetic eyes for Thor. Captain Marvel is 2 miles away. Oh, right, she lives here now. Ignoring the notification, I moved to the market area and started browsing the wares. I mean, I could have just used my search bar to find the bestseller in Xander, but where was the fun in that? I liked walking around, so when the time to buy or steal something came, I would use the search bar. Until then, I would simply walk around. Captain Marvel is 1 mile away. I blinked, opening the minimap. She was apparently flying towards my general direction. I doubted she knew I was. Unless Xander had such a good security that they would detect a random person appearing out of nowhere. I guess now that I think about it, it's a possibility. I shrugged. While I didn't like the girl, particularly, I wasn't against saying hi, and such. Besides, I was vastly stronger than her, so I was kind of hoping to see her, to see if she would strike me again. The result this time would be hilarious, at least for me. Captain Marvel is 100 feet away. So, it was you, and there she is. Hello. I turned around and waved. Carol Susan Jane Danvers, Captain Marvel LV 381. You know it's illegal to enter the planet without an ID or letting the officials know, right? Carol inquired, crossing her arms. Good security, maybe I ought to copy that too. I did not, I replied. I could arrest you, Carol added, narrowing her eyes. Sure. I snorted. Carol narrowed her eyes even more. Have you forgotten how things ended last time we fought? As far as I can see, your friends aren't around to save your ass from a beating. I chuckled. Yeah, they are home, not that I need them. Ah, the hate boner. I wonder why she behaves like that, like she was the one that punched me when we met, not the other way around. You don't? Then, you are under arrest for trespassing Xander territory without the legal screening required, Carol stated, approaching to grab my arms. So, I see you are still holding a grudge, I commented, offering my arms for her to grab. No, I just don't like assholes that ignore my authority, and the rules set around the planet, Carol replied, putting some cuffs on me. I smiled, breaking the cuffs almost as if they were made out of plastic. Look, whatever grudge you have against me, for whatever reasons you might have, I don't have time to play the bad cop game. I have things to do, and stuff to buy, so, go and harass another minority on this planet. With that said, I turned around, wondering how long would it take her to punch me. You fucking prick, Carol spat the moment I turned around, and like clockwork, kicked me in the back with enough strength to send me off the market into a desolated area. Good for her, she was a Karen with principles. I could respect that. That tickled, I commented, cleaning off the dirt from my clothes. You might be above law on your planet, but here, you will follow the rules, Carol growled, floating above me in a menacing way. I hummed, does that applies to politicians? I mean, shouldn't I have I don't know, some perks? Not from Earth, Carol grinned. And, what about Asgard? I asked, tilting my head. You are not part of Asgard, Carol scoffed. Oh, but I grinned. I was crowned Prince of Asgard, by the current king, Thor Odinson. Therefore, you have just punched a prince, one that should have been treated with much, much more respect, I sighed, pretending to be disappointed. That's bullcrap, Carol replied, you are no prince. Oh, but I am, and I have a few harsh comments about your performance with your boss. I bet she will love to hear how you punched a prince just because you felt like it. I smiled. In fact, I think my back actually hurts. I will some compensation for it, I can't even walk. You are no prince, you are standing fine. As she said this, I summoned a wheelchair, and some casts for my legs, arms, and neck. Is that you, Carol? I can't see you. Your moment of police brutality has blinded me, I said, trying to sound as weak and hurt as possible. You were fine. Carol roared. To think Xander, the planet I wanted to make a trade route with, would treat me so badly, I lamented. You are not a prince. Carol roared once again. I could almost taste her anger in the air. You, bad analogy. Smiling at this, I opened a portal to Asgard, for Thor to take, not without explaining to Thor what had happened. How dare you strike my brother? Thor boomed at her. You weren't kidding. Carol hissed, looking at me, which gave Thor enough time to get into a wheelchair with some casts as well. Oh! The mighty pain! Thor lamented, playing the role I had given him to perfection. I didn't even touch you. Carol barked. Why, brother, why must we suffer through this? Thor sobbed. Jesus fuck, he was a good actor. I do not know, brother, but it seems Xander has a no Asgardian policy, I lamented with him. Enough about the show. Carol barked, turning around to see a few ships flying her way, Xander troops to be precise. As she did this, I added some 4 drips and monitors to our situations, making them look even more dire. Captain Marvel, what is the situation? A random soldier asked. It's complicated, Carol replied. We, royals of Asgard, have been struck by a Xandarian officer. The pain, I cannot deal with it, Thor shouted to the skies. He was really into his role. Had we had known, Xander had such strong feelings against Asgardians, we would have never come, I muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Are they actually royals from Asgard? One of the soldiers behind Carol asked as he got out of his ship. Yes, they are, Carol growled her words out, probably cursing me. But, Captain, we have a treaty with them that has lasted for over 3,000 years. I grinned. This was so much better than punching her. I got so much stuff from the altercation with Captain Marvel, and the best part, they had forced her to apologize, and oh boy, did I record that shit with a 4K alien camera, or whatever shit they have. She was so mad, I could literally see smoke coming out of her ears. I would one day make peace with her, but until that day, I would annoy her. Because, why not? As for the thing I had come to acquire, well, Thor found his eyes. No laser eyes, sadly, but eyes with X-ray vision, heat vision, and other upgrades that made regular eyes feel like how obsolete phone booths would feel in a few years on Earth. The best part was, the eyes didn't need any charge to function. Long story short, they charged from the electricity any warmed-blooded body produced, and with Thor being the god of thunder, well, that shit would remain functional forever. Beyond that, we signed a revised alliance agreement with them, effectively making me Carol's superior. Needless to say, that wasn't the intent of the alliance, that was simply the cherry on top. I was preparing, so to speak. Null would come, when? No idea, but when he came, we would need more than Asgard, way more. So, I was simply connecting the dots, for now. It wasn't my original idea to do so when I came here, but sometimes, things happen. After that, we returned to Asgard and continued our day-to-day lives. Thor doing his thing, and me doing mine. That was until Thor reminded me of my offer to help Loki with, well, everything. So, Plan Emily Reformation started. First, I opened a portal to Loki's room. The latter obviously wasn't expecting me, and jumped to his feet in fright. Then, I grabbed him like a cat by the neck and tossed him into a padded room, sealing his powers. The funny thing about this was, that because it had all been so sudden, and without explanation, Loki had been like the Pikachu meme, at a loss for words, questioning if he was dreaming or something. After leaving a befuddled Loki in a dimension of my making, I went to get his mother, Frigga. Once again, the same effect happened, this time with Odin. He saw me appear in the middle of his house, approach his wife, take her, and then teleport, all while he was looking at me like, what is going on? Frigga, however, had her questions the moment I stepped back to Asgard with her in my arms. I obviously answered them, explaining what I was trying to do with Loki, to which she hugged me, and cried on my shoulder for a good minute, thanking me for giving her boy a chance. Explanation done, I opened a portal to where Loki was, and let Frigga walk inside. As Loki looked at me, fuming in anger, I closed the portal before he could say anything. Now, it was time to bring the big guns, and by that, I mean, Emily, because Nat had already told me she cared little for whatever happened with Loki, that he could die or something for all she cared. While Emily was like super into saving him and stuff. Anyways, it was time to bring Emily Walker, the cutest thing in the universe. Meow. Goose meowed, narrowing her eyes at me. You know what, you don't even read minds. Get out of here, I chuckled. Sorry Goose, Emily has the first place, so be happy with third. I'm ready Daddy, Emily said, as she stepped through a portal of her own making into my room, equipped with lots of teddy bears, food, books, a TV, some movies, a diary, and other stuff. That's a lot of stuff, I whistled. I am giving him the full experience. When I'm done with him, he will be saving cats for a living, Emily declared as I chuckled. Okay, I smiled, opening a portal to where Loki was, letting Emily step through the portal first, with me following close behind. You! Loki roared, but with a snap of my fingers, I silenced him. God, I loved my new powers. Look, I used to hate you, but now, I just want to help you, so I grinned, snapping my fingers once again, forcing Loki into a new form, the form of a kid around Emily's age. Not only that, but I took every weapon in his possession, and put a seal on his body that would immobilize him if he tried to hurt anyone, including himself. What have you done to me? Loki exclaimed, his voice now sounding like that of a child. Ah! Frigga cooed, so adorable. I chuckled, I guess moms will be moms no matter what. Frigga Freydota LV 199. Status equals pregnant. Oh, well, good for them. I hope this one doesn't want to kill me. I wonder if Odin knows. I wonder if he plans to seal it too. Okay, enough jokes about Odin's pathetic parental skills. Anyway, Emily and your mother will help you, well, improve, to be the better version of yourself. Look, I know you had it hard, so, try to be open-minded. I smiled. Open-minded? Loki roared, or tried to. His child's vocal cords could not do such a thing. I just had reverse puberty, in less than a second. The only thing I will open, it's your skull. The moment he said that, Emily threw a teddy bear at him, and looked at me, and said, "Daddy, I have work to do, so, bye." Wow, my baby girl being all professional and stuff, I had the urge to kiss her, but I shall abstain, as you wish. I bowed, teleporting out of the room, this time back to Odin's house. Odin. I waved, seeing the old man staring at me, only to notice something. It was a magical construct. The fucker had left his pregnant wife alone. I could have been Thanos or one of his many enemies. Oh, hell no. I growled, using my map to find Odin, and open a portal to him. According to my map, he was currently in a cave below Asgard and was about to receive a royal class ass beating. Odin. I called, seeing the old seating in a rock. Alex. Odin exclaimed, turning around. You left your pregnant wife alone. Do you have any idea how many enemies you have? I kidnapped her and you weren't even there. I shot back, balling my fists. You did what? Odin roared. What I did is beyond the point, you senile bastard. I roared back, ready to show him how much more powerful than him I was now. Really? Father? Another one. However, a voice I knew all too well stopped me, the voice of Hela. Alex, don't do anything hasty, Odin said almost immediately. By all means, kill me, and him for being here with me. Hela smiled. I would gladly go to hell if he's going down with me. They. You knew she was alive, and didn't tell anyone. I muttered, staring into his eyes. I was beyond angry. He had let Hela live. After all, she did, and could do, and hadn't even thought about letting Thor know. She could have harmed my family. She could have harmed Sif. I will kill them. She isn't a threat to anyone as she is now. Odin said, reading my face. You know how to make a lady special, Father. Hela rolled her eyes. He's right, you know, as immortal as I am, with my current power, this debilitated shell of what I used to be is pathetic. Even a human could beat me as I am now, but I know that look, darling, the look of a warrior looking for retribution, so come and claim my life. My goals are beyond me now. Killing Thor is impossible for me as it is, and we both know the old man will seal me before I recover enough power to kill him. She sighed, letting out a chuckle. Impressive. I was so angry, I felt somehow calm. What an interesting discovery. Alex. Don't make me hurt you. Odin said, moving to protect his daughter. The bastard really had the balls. He didn't move to protect Thor but moved to protect her. We are well beyond that point now, I sighed, taking the first step. I looked at Odin in rage, my fists shaking. Alex, Odin spoke, you must understand, you are a father too. You are nothing like me. I roared, we had nothing in common. I would never hurt my daughters, I would never push them to become monsters. In that we can agree. Hela nodded, rolling her eyes. Hela, silence. Odin hissed. She could have harmed your people, my daughters, everyone, and you never thought to tell us. I laughed. Was he really so blind to his own mistakes? Look at her, can she hurt anyone as she is? Odin shot back, pointing at Hela. Hela Odin's daughter LV 350, severely weakened LV 30. So what? I replied, looking at her. I want to give her a chance, Odin replied, his eye begging me to not fight him on this one. The worst part was, I could truly see the love between those eyes, the desperation behind them, which only helped my fury. He loved her. After all the shit he made her do. Would he really dare to say he loved her? To now try and protect her? Where were those eyes when Thor was fighting her? I asked, my voice cold and steeled. What? Odin replied. When Hela tried to kill him, where were those eyes? I asked again. That's a very good question, darling. Hela smiled. I knew he would win, Odin replied, looking at me. I see, I sighed, before teleporting behind him. And the show begins, Hela grinned. Alex, don't make me, Odin began, trying to turn around to face me, but before he could do such a thing, I balled up my fist and punched him in the face, using the power of the Power Stone. You know what? You are right, and it sickens me, I chuckled, walking towards the old man, who was simply staring at his blood-covered hand in shock. It angers me, sure, but you are right, Hela deserves a second chance because it was you who fucked her first, but you don't. I do. Hela asked from the back. Darling, I'm not following this conversation anymore. You mean to kill me then? Odin scoffed, standing up from the ground, his nose and mouth broken from the previous attack. Not sure I can, I sighed. I love Thor, he's my best friend, and begrudgingly, my self-appointed brother, so I can't kill you, it would hurt him a lot, so while I figure out what to do with her, be it sealing her or killing her. I added, pointing at Hela with one finger, who simply shrugged at my pointing. I will take out my frustrations with you. And the flood begins, Hela muttered, looking between her legs. Really? I sighed, turning around to face her. What? It's not only hot, but it's also cathartic by proxy, so, two kinks in one, Hela winked, blowing me a kiss. So be it. I will do what I must, Odin declared. I scoffed, first time for everything. I had barely finished my sentence when Odin charged at me, but unlike last time, this battle would end quickly, and in my favor. Not I was vastly more powerful, but this time, I was fighting to win. So without even moving a finger from where I stood, I used the Time Stone, alongside the skill, Time, and stopped time in Asgard completely, leaving me in a world of my own, with everything and everyone around me frozen in place, except for me. Then, I calmly walked toward Odin and put my hand on his head, using the Power Stone, to drain all of his energy. When that was done, I returned to my previous position and unfroze time, to see Odin falling to the ground with a loud thud. What? Odin muttered, his whole body shaking. I won, I replied to his unspoken question. Wait, what? Hela exclaimed. How the hell did you know what, never mind, he lost, I can die happy. She added, throwing her hands to the air. You used the Infinity Stones. You would dare to go so low? Odin spat in anger. I'm angry, unbelievably so, but I love Thor more than I hate you right now, so I held back and used the stones, because, without them, I would have killed you, I sighed, easily. I am far beyond your reach now, only Thor can stop me now, and that's an if. You would, Odin began, but once again, I cut him short, by teleporting behind him, knocking him out by slamming his face to the ground with enough force to make half of Asgard shake. I wish I had a recording device, Hela sighed, full of sadness. You are very cheery for someone whose destiny it's hanging on a thin thread, I said, turning to look at her. Darling, I know what battles to fight, and this one, Hela chuckled, pointing at me, it's not one I can win, not even in my wildest dreams, and believe me, you are in them. I sighed, I truly wanted to kill her, but at the same time, I pitied her. She was the result of Odin being the worst possible father he could be, She was Loki in more ways than one. I'll talk with Thor to decide your fate. With that said, I snapped my fingers, sealing Hela in a cube of magic for easy transportation. Very well, Hela chuckled, I can wait to see the king, crowned by a foreigner. I glared at her. Oh darling, I meant no offense. Hela winked, at least to you anyways. You know I almost killed you the first time we battled, and I'm currently debating whether or not to kill you right now, right? I asked, giving her a side glance. Yes, and I respect you for it, a true warrior through and through, not like the pathetic excuse of one Odin is. Hela nodded, she really was sick. Apparently the fact I had tried to kill her, made her infatuation with me even stronger. No matter, I would let Thor decide, it was his family after all, and he had the right to vote on their fate. That's it for the video guys. Hope you like the video. Like, share and subscribe. Also tell me in the comment section which kind of fanfiction you would like to watch next, or if you have any recommendation.